Wow. I'm so fat today. Oh my god. I ate so much food yesterday. I was like, this is not gonna end well. Oh my goodness. What did you guys eat for Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving? First, let me say welcome back to the channel, pretty people. My name is Gypsy. Let me tell you, I had me a whole spread of food yesterday. I gave myself 3 hours to cook everything, and that's all the time I needed. My daughter Jackson helped. We ate up a storm and we still had tons of food left over, so I didn't have to cook at all today, which is totally a win. But I ate way too much. Like, I remember, late night, like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I was still eating turkey. And I was telling my husband, I was like, I'm gonna regret this tomorrow. I'm so bloated right now, it's crazy. I don't normally celebrate holidays. I'm not a holiday person. It's not necessarily because of religious reasons. I don't think I've ever celebrated holidays, and I've been a part of multiple religions in my lifetime, so it wasn't really that. My dad was a Jehovah's Witness, and we didn't really grow up with holidays. People always think like kids are gonna be so heartbroken because they can't celebrate holidays if their parents are exempting them from that because of religious reasons, which I don't understand. I didn't understand why so many people were celebrating Christmas when they weren't even Christians. What? Like, I feel like it's one of those things, it's like exclusive to the people who follow that religion, isn't it? But people would act like I'm supposed to be sad because I can't celebrate Christmas. It's not that I can't celebrate it. I don't celebrate it. It's not for me. So why would I? It's just weird. You can't celebrate Cinco de Mayo in our American school. Oh, you poor thing. Like, that kid is not missing anything. They didn't grow up with Cinco de Mayo, so why would that bother them? I feel like it's just like a cash grab for people to go and spend tons of money on stupid stuff that they don't really need because they think that means that they're celebrating something, which I just don't get it. And then the next day, it's like nothing happened. They just go back to their usual lives and there's no change. So it just makes no sense to me to bother with it. I'm autistic. I don't really like being in like big gatherings with lots of people around me and folks who I barely even see or talk to most of the year springing up out of nowhere and expecting me to give them presents and like treat them special. I don't know, just the whole thing logically doesn't make sense to me. It just seems like everyone is acting so that they can be accepted by everyone else. I don't understand the logic in that. Just be yourself. It's not that serious. If you don't like me just the way that I already am, then what's the point? Like, you're not liking the real me, so we don't need to be friends then. Just move on with your day. It's not the end of the world because everybody doesn't like you. Anyway, here I go ranting. Thanksgiving and I think Valentine's Day are the two holidays that I actually do appreciate. I don't celebrate them in a traditional way, but I appreciate those days and I don't mind participating in stuff for those days because I think that it does represent some sense of like gratitude for your family or for your loved ones and showing the person and people who are important to you that they're important to you by sharing memories with them. So those are the only two holidays that I actually ever pay any really attention to or put any kind of like effort into. But all the other holidays, who cares? Just another day to me. What are we talking about today? Well, one of my subscribers had a lovely question for me. They asked me which are my oldest dolls. I've never been asked that question before, and I actually answered it 2 different ways. The first response that I was thinking was my oldest doll ever, in which case my answer could vary depending on like what kind of doll you're talking about. So if you're talking about any kind of doll at all, then that would take me all the way deep into my childhood back when I was living in Korea. She wasn't my oldest doll, but she was my favorite doll as far back in my memory as I can go, and her name was Seromi. And she was a baby doll. I cannot for the life of me find a picture of this doll anywhere on the internet. I don't know how to search it in such a way that I could maybe find pictures of this doll. And I don't know if anyone else who's hanging out on the internet even owned this doll that has a picture of this doll because it's so old. I had this doll back in the early 90s before I ever came to America. So Seromi was my favorite doll, and she was like my dream baby doll that I saw on like a TV commercial that I really wanted. And I think one of my aunts gave her to me as a Christmas present, despite the fact that they weren't Christians. And so why are we celebrating Christmas? I don't know. But whatever the case was, I remember getting her as a present from my Korean aunts. She had like blonde hair and she was so tiny. And I remember showing her off to my best friend who lives in my grandmom's neighborhood. So every weekend when I would go to my grandmom's house, I would play with this doll with my friend, and we loved playing like house. That was like our favorite thing to do. So I'd just drag this doll with me freaking everywhere. I loved her so much. I thought she was so pretty. Like, she just had the cutest little, daintiest little face, and she was so pretty. It didn't occur to me that she was a little white baby. Like, when I dream that I have like a daughter, I'm always dreaming that I have a little white baby. When I was pregnant with my daughter, clearly she's not white, so like, why would you be dreaming that you have a white baby? But it's always like that. There's always a little white girl. It's so bizarre. I don't know. Maybe subconsciously I'm like picturing Seromi in my thoughts or in my dreams when I'm dreaming about babies. Maybe that's where it comes from. Well, we just had a breakthrough. Who said there's no such thing as doll therapy? That was my experience with my first doll that I can remember that I would consider like my oldest doll. Besides that, if you were asking about fashion dolls, my oldest fashion doll ever, I don't count any of the Mimi dolls that my family members would purchase for me when I lived in Korea, because in my mind they were not dolls that I would have picked to play with. I just settled for them because that's all I could have access to, because that's what people were buying me. I was a kid. But my dream was to own a Barbie doll, and my family, my parents would not buy me a Barbie doll. They just wouldn't. So I never ended up with one. And when I asked my mom, I actually did a video where I filmed myself calling my mother and asking her, why did you guys never buy me an actual Barbie when we lived in Korea? Because they sold Barbies there. She said, I just never had asked them for one. But I don't think that's true. I'm pretty sure my father at least knew that I was lusting after those Barbie dolls, because every time he'd take me to a toy store, I'd just be staring at them. That's all I wanted to look at was the Barbie dolls, and I would just be oohing and eyeing over them. So I think my dad had his own personal reasons why he didn't ever buy me a Barbie doll, because he bought me other dolls. But personally, just knowing how my father's personality was, and now as an adult, looking back at that scene, I think personally he didn't want to buy me the Barbies because, for one, they were kind of like mature looking and I was very young, and Mimi dolls, they don't look as mature as Barbie dolls do. They don't have much of a physique. My dad was very like pro-black. He really wanted us to appreciate our black heritage and to embrace our blackness, because at the time we were growing up in Korea and culturally we were basically only Korean. So even though we spoke English, we just couldn't really relate to a lot of black culture at the time because we weren't exposed to it. At the time, I remember there weren't that many black dolls that were even available. There were like a lot of Christie dolls. I didn't like them because I didn't like the way that they would do the face-ups for those head molds. They just looked so like garish to me. It was too much makeup. It's just like their eyes were huge and wide and they were scary to me. Like, I didn't like them. And so when he would tell me to like pick a doll, I'd always go for the white dolls. And I think personally, this is my theory, I think he didn't want to buy me blonde hair, blue-eyed Barbie with this huge bust because he just didn't want me to be looking at that as an image of beauty for myself. My dad wanted to instill self-esteem in my sister and I, and we got picked on a lot in Korea because of our brown skin. The Korean kids would always tease us. So we only had a few close friends that were actual like Korean kids. Most of our friends were mixed like us or from other countries, and their families were stationed in Korea, so we like knew them from school. But the actual local Korean kids, they were really mean to us. So my father was always aware that he wanted his daughters to not look at themselves like they were less than just because of our racial makeup. This is my personal opinion and theory about why my father didn't ever buy me a Barbie doll in Korea. My father died when I was like 8, so I never had the chance to ask him personally why he never got me a Barbie doll. But according to my mom, she's like, oh, you just never asked. Whatever. I didn't actually get my hands on a real Barbie, official Barbie doll, until I moved to America. My dad's older sister, my aunt, she took us to a toy store and she told us to pick out any toy that we wanted. Each of us could get one thing that we really, really wanted. That aunt, her daughter, had like a whole collection of dolls, like so many freaking dolls. And I was like so jealous and so happy at the same time when I would go and play at her house because I loved playing with her Barbie dolls so much. And for me, it was a Barbie. The Barbie that I picked was called, I think she was called Glitter Hair Barbie. I got the Teresa doll, and she had the brown brunette hair, and she was kind of a little bit darker skin, kind of tan, and she reminded me of me because I was like, oh snap, she's like tan and she's got dark hair and she's Cool. So my father approved. He didn't intervene. He let us pick whatever we wanted. And I treasured that Barbie doll to no end. Like, she was my bestest friend in the whole wide world. If I'm not mistaken, I think I actually named that Barbie doll Siggy Ranson. And Siggy was the name of my imaginary friend when I was a little girl in Korea. Basically superimposed that imaginary friend idea onto this Barbie doll and would carry her around with me everywhere and pretend that she was my imaginary friend in doll form, and I would talk to her. These days I do have it in Mbili, or is it Mbili? I don't know how you pronounce the name of the sculpt, y'all, but anyways, and she's my current Siggy Ran, just because I just felt like keeping the name in my collection because it's meaningful, so I just gave it to that doll randomly. But yeah, so that's my first ever memory of my oldest doll that was a Barbie doll. If you're asking this question in reference to the oldest fashion doll that I ever started collecting, I have two phases of collecting that I can tell you guys about. So my first phase was at a time when I didn't realize I was actually collecting, and this was during my teen years. I'll get more into this in detail in a separate video because someone else asked another question about my collecting journey, so I don't want to get too into it here. But basically, there were some Mycene dolls. Those dolls kind of like catapulted my collecting bug, kind of. Except at the time I had no idea that I was actually collecting anything. So technically it would be that era during my teen years when I was starting to collect. I guess I would say those were probably my oldest fashion dolls that were part of a collection. So today in my current collection, I can show you my actual oldest dolls and the stories behind those dolls. So we're gonna just jump over to the dolly station now, and we're gonna take a look at those dolls so that you don't have to be burdened by continually having to look at my bloated ass face today. So believe it or not, this little lineup of dolls that I'm showing you guys here, I pretty much got these dolls all around the same time. These are the current batch of dolls that I had that are the oldest in my collection. They are the true veterans of my collection. I can't believe I actually still have them, because at some point I was actually gonna sell some of these, and then I changed my mind and ended up just holding on to them longer. And they've been here ever since, and it's so crazy because they're like a monument to how I started my doll tubing, really. Initially when I started this channel, it wasn't for Barbie dolls. I was actually making this channel to show off my big dolls. I guess they would be considered like 1/1 scale dolls because they're actual life-sized dolls that are the size of real children. And those videos are still here, so if you filter through my video cache and put it on oldest, then you'll be able to see those videos that are still up here. So that was initially what I was trying to do, was to review those dolls, because there weren't any really good detailed reviews of those big dolls, and I'm all about detail, and I really wanted to contribute to the community by creating reviews that other people could watch, just the way I wish somebody would have reviewed those dolls for me when I wanted to learn about those dolls. But then somewhere along the line, I had this idea that I wanted to, this was back in, well, I don't know the exact date, obviously, because I can't remember that far back. But if we look at the dates on the videos when they were posted, then that should give us a better idea of the exact time frame. But somewhere along that timeline, I got this idea that I wanted to do an actual show, like a series, you know, like how Sam and Mickey had their series going. And I think at the time the Darby show was kind of big on My Froggy stuff, and a couple of other channels like that that had actual series, but it wasn't based on what those guys were doing. I am a performing artist, so I've always been writing and like coming up with storylines and things that I wanted to perform or produce, but I can't with people because people are unpredictable. I don't have no money to pay you to act for me, so I thought maybe we can use the dolls as our puppets and somehow create the show that way. So I had the idea for Broken Barbie show way back then. That was my intention for why I started to actually acquire these dolls. So I started it off with these three. Raymond Pratabi here, aka V. He was my first male doll that I had added to my collection. He was obviously going to be the male host of the show. Along with him, I had bought another doll that is the exact same doll, the Texas A&M cheerleader Ken. I had two of them, but one I slightly altered. I'm not even gonna call him like a repaint because he's not a full repaint. He still has his original eyes, but I changed his lip color. I gave him some facial hair and I gave him a new hairline. And I gave him new eyebrows along with that little mole there between his eyes. That's basically the alterations I made. And then I think I might have drawn like hair on his body or something. It's very light repainting that I did with him. I wouldn't even consider him a repaint. Like I said, he's more like a custom doll, and his personality was supposed to be like this very cynical, sarcastic guy, says whatever he wants and doesn't really think about how he's affecting the people around him when he talks because he's so blunt. He's not trying to be mean. He just doesn't have a reason to sugarcoat, you know, like in his own head it's like, well, you can't handle the truth, but it's the truth though. What would you want me to lie to you? Like that's his whole persona, partially based on my husband Adonis's real personality. I wanted Adonis to do his voice, but I didn't want him to act when he was doing his voice. I wanted him to just talk like his usual normal self and for it to feel more organic. So that's where we came up with the concept for this character. I think we pulled it off. Even like his last name Pratabi, which is spelled pretty boy, but it's pronounced Pratabi. That's an actual nickname that my husband had when we were like teachers at the church program or something for kids. I was the director and he was like the music teacher. He didn't want the kids to call him by his name, Mr. Adonis, right? As a joke, he just told the kids to call him Mr. Pratabi, but he spelled it pretty boy. And since they were little kids, they don't know. So they're just like, whatever, okay. They didn't realize he was being like sarcastic, but it just stuck. So that's why I gave Raymond that same name. I would never ever get rid. He's like probably one of my favorite male dolls in my collections, and he's very meaningful to me because of that. Now the counterpart of that would be Soan here, Soan Abrams, and she is our female host of the show. And Soan is loosely based on myself, so she's supposed to be half Korean and half black. Of course, I'm not as light-skinned as she is, but I just thought that it would be funny to have a character that's like kind of the same, you know, racial makeup as me. A lot of what she's based on is also my sister, and my sister is the lighter one of the two of us, so she resembles her more. I have another doll that I kind of based more on myself that's supposed to be her sister, so I'll show you guys her. But she's originally a Sew in Style Barbie, and she is the baby fat Marissa, which now, like trying to find this doll, good luck. I did not realize, y'all, when I bought this doll, that the Sew in Style dolls would be such classics. Like they would be so hard for people to get a hold of, that they would be discontinued. I really had no idea. I know there must have been a decent price because I don't think I spent more than $20 per any of these dolls. Obviously she's not on her original body. She's got a made to move. I think she did have articulation when I first bought her. I'll show you another doll that I got at the same time that has the original body. She had the same type of body as her, but because I wanted to use her to, you know, do skits with, I did eventually swap her body out as soon as I had the opportunity to do it. I need her to be able to pose whatever way I want her to pose. So when I say she's based on myself and my sister, the racial makeup is based on myself and my sister, and her character, she's got like a European accent. You know, she talks like this, and obviously me and my sister, we don't talk this way, but that part of her personality was kind of like an inside joke for myself, because me and my sister would do this thing where we would prank people who we didn't know when we would first meet them. We would throw on an accent and just keep a straight face the entire time we're interacting with the person, so that they thought that we actually really had this accent. And it was just so hilarious to us that we could like do this and people never suspected that we were totally acting, right? This is something we used to do as teenagers. I just thought it would be funny to have her have this accent, and there's no explanation as to like, why are you a Korean and black American person with a British accent? Like, that's weird. You know, kind of like Stewie from Family Guy. Like, why does he have an accent? Nobody knows, but like he just does. Also, to go along with her like very posh, very snooty kind of personality that she has, I'm not gonna say she's looking down on everyone, but she has a standard that she thinks everyone around her needs to meet, and if they don't meet that standard, she thinks it's totally okay to just say condescending things to them. She doesn't think she's being condescending though, so she's not trying to diss you, she just doesn't understand your way of thinking, so she's like kind of making you feel weird about it because she's pointing it out. And I don't think I made any alterations to this doll other than I gave her this teeny tiny little mole right there on the top of her forehead, and like, woo, she's customized, y'all. Like, that's it. That's all I did to her. She's just so pretty, you guys. Like, I know she's a Mabili sculpt, and that sculpt is very overused by Mattel for both playline and collector level dolls, but I don't know what it is about that sculpt. It's just so versatile. You can paint, repaint, face up these dolls in so many different ways, and they look like they could belong to almost any race. They're just so different looking from each other, and a lot of different personalities you can pull from that sculpt. And I'll show you guys that most of these dolls here are actually the same sculpt, and they all look different from each other. That's basically the backstory with Soan, is that I wanted her to be this kind of like a smart aleck, but because she has this posh accent, you kind of can't really question her, because you just come off looking like you're just so uneducated and so beneath her. The fact that you would question this woman with this high society accent, like, how dare you? Now, the part about her that reminds me of my sister, of course, my sister, she is more the, like, she's a very like bold person, and she is confrontational compared to me, and I'm not naturally like that. I'm a very passive person, and Soan's personality is not passive whatsoever. I'm basically like impersonating my sister with a British accent when I'm doing her voice. The name Soan comes from, Soan is a Korean word. It means wish. Abrams, the last name, is actually a family last name on my father's side of the family. Right quick before I show you the rest of the dolls with the Mabili head sculpts, I'm gonna show you Mona here. So this doll, I call her Mona. Her full name is Desdemona Lisa Roberts. And this character was also one of the first characters that we used for Broken Barbie show. She is supposed to be a publicist for Barbie, right? Like the actual character, Barbie Millicent Roberts. But she's also supposed to be her cousin. So she's like related to her. So that's why she looks just like Barbie. I actually did customize her a lot. She's originally from the Life in the Dreamhouse line of Barbies from 2012, I think. But when I bought her, I think it was later than 2012. I think it was like 2013, maybe even 14 when I bought the doll. And as you can see, she's filled from top to bottom with freckles. Like even her body is covered in freckles, but she's not actually on her original body. This is what the joints look like on her body, and you can see she doesn't have any wrist joints. But I actually did this as a test to see if the paint would wear off or like get messed up if I did the freckles on her whole body. So she just ended up stuck on this body because I liked the way it looked with all the freckles. Because even though this doll is in my collection, you guys, like I said, she's more of an actor than a model in my collection. So I don't put her on display. When I'm not doing like a video with her in it, she's always like nude, wrapped up and stuck in a box. I don't keep her out for any reason. I don't particularly like this doll as a display doll. So that's part of why I ended up swapping out her body for a different doll to use. But as far as the custom work that I did to her, initially she had blue eyes, but I changed them to brown. And I wanted her to look different than like, you know, regular blonde blue-eyed Barbie, who's supposed to be her cousin. She's like almost like Barbie, but not quite, you know what I'm saying? She's got brown eyes. I changed her eyebrows slightly. She does actually have the rooted eyelashes still that she came with, and they were very thick and long, like a bristle brush, the way that her eyebrows are. I ended up shortening them. I clipped them so that they're not so far protruding out from her face, because the shadow that they cast makes it hard for you to actually see her eyes on camera. I clearly covered her entire face with freckles, and then I repainted her lips from like a bright pink or some kind of bright lipstick she had on initially. Switched that out to a different color. At the time when I did her, I didn't know how to extract the teeth from the dolls, which if I had, I probably would have closed her mouth up. But I didn't know how to do that at the time, so I just settled for repainting her lips. I think this doll has a Generation Girl head sculpt. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I always get it mixed up sometimes when I see the Generation Girl head sculpt on Barbie dolls. I want to say that they're Millie sculpts, but I know that they're not. Like there's a difference between her face and an actual Millie head sculpt. I never mix up a Millie, but I always think a Generation Girl's head is a Millie. I don't know why. When their face up looks like blonde hair, blue-eyed Barbie. For some reason, I have a gut feeling that she's my only one. So these three really are like the OGs of my current collection that I started collecting without realizing that I was collecting Barbie dolls when I added them them because I solely meant for them to be actors. I wasn't trying to put them on display and like, you know, dress them up and do all of this stuff with them like I do now with the rest of the dolls in my collection. Raymond and Soan eventually end up becoming my channel mascots, so their picture is the one that I use as the profile picture for this channel. So that's the whole backstory for these 3 characters. Let's now move on to the other girls who are also part of the squad. The rest of these are pretty much the same type of doll, but they don't have their original faces anymore. So let's just go through them one by one. The first one here is Brielle, and she's got like a copper hair. And Brielle is originally a Soan style baby fat Cara, and she does have mixtures of like some almost like a reddish kind of tone in there. It's just, I don't know, just beautifully blended the way that they did the hair. And she is the one that is still on her original body. The rest of these dolls I have swapped onto other bodies. Brielle here, her face is completely repainted. She doesn't look anything like how she looked when I first got her. And if you're curious about the joints, this is what her body looks like. This is how it came. All the baby fat dolls had these kinds of joints. So she's got a really cool skin tone. There's a slight red undertone to her coloring that's a little bit different. I don't think that I actually even found a body donor for her, which might be why I never swapped her body out. Recently though, I haven't really checked to see if there are any newer donor bodies that could be used for her, but I don't think I would switch it anyways because I like her fine the way that she is. I did alter this body too, which is part of why I leave her the way she is. Here you can kind of see that she's got like nipples. I don't know if you can see that, but from her waist up she's anatomically correct. I don't display this doll too often because I feel like her face paint is fragile and I don't want to do anything to disturb it. Really, when I did her face, and the same goes for all of these dolls, I was just kind of playing around. I wasn't really seriously trying to repaint. I just wanted to like alter the way that each of them looked so they didn't look like their original selves, because I thought I was going to use these guys as more characters on Broken Barbie show. And then once I did it, I just was like, well, it seems so fragile. I don't want to mess it up. So I just packed her away and put her away when she wasn't being used for filming. And I got so used to not having them out on display over the years that these dolls are like almost as old as my daughter, who's 13 now. So I just don't really bring them out. This one is also a Soan style baby fat, and her character's name was Chandra, but I named her Fiora. She actually had a different name when I first got her, but I think I changed it because I gave that name to a different doll that I thought it suited better. This is her original hair that she came with. She had like some big poofy hair, but because she's been just sitting in a box for a while, it's just crazy looking right now. And I didn't really have time to mess around with the hair to tame it, so this is what you get. I did draw some like a little hairline on her to give her a different look. Also, her entire face is repainted as well, and same thing that I did with Brielle, I did with this doll, except that she does actually have a made to move body. I think I used the hiker doll. We always call her the hiker, but is she an actual hiker? That's the doll that I used for her made to move body swap. Yeah, not much to say about this doll. I mean, she again was part of the background characters that I was going to use for our show. I don't know if I even ever got around to using this doll because by the time I was ready to film more episodes, I think I started acquiring more dolls. This one is Somi Abrams, and she is originally baby fat Grace. I just want to add a little correction that Somi is not a baby fat Soan style doll. I don't know exactly which version she is, but I know she's not a baby fat version. Definitely Somi was the version that came with the zebra print dress. That I do remember. So I just wanted to clarify that before I move any further along and correct myself. I really liked the way that her face up turned out. And she's probably one of my favorites of the repainted ones in this little lineup I'm showing you guys, because everything turned out just so soft looking on her. She just looks so soft and like sweet. But Somi here is the sister of Soan. Soan is more like my sister, physically speaking. She looks more like my sister's, the light-skinned one. And then I'm the darker one of the two of us. I don't know if you can really tell, but I did try to make her look Blasian as much as I could. I was just kind of like an observant kid. I was very like outgoing and loud, but not in like an obnoxious way. It was more like I was just comfortable with myself being unlike all the other kids around me. fitting in with other kids to me was such a turnoff. Like, I didn't want to be like everyone else. I thought it was stupid. I just felt like, why are we all individuals if we're all trying to be like somebody else? Like, it just doesn't make sense. There just didn't seem any logic behind it. So I was very focused on developing my own personality and focusing my time and energy on doing that. I just could not be bothered. I did not want to belong to a clique. I didn't want to be part of groups. Like, that just wasn't me. Even though I had friends, a lot of the friends I had back in high school were really my sister's friends. She was very outgoing and quick to make friends and popular. I was just always with her. Like, she was like my security blanket. So because me and her were constantly together, people thought we were twins, and people thought that like we were best friends. We were. The people that hung out with my sister, they just automatically thought I was their friend too, even though in my head, like, you guys are not really my friends. Yeah, Somi does have a made to move body. The only thing about Somi that really like annoys me is her hair. I cannot stand her bangs. I didn't reroot her, although I probably should have, but at the time when I customized this doll, I didn't know how to reroot yet. So I ended up braiding all her hair because this texture, oh my gosh, what is this stuff called? I don't know what this is called. Is it nylon? It's not like this smooth saran type of hair. It's a completely different texture of hair. It's very light and fluffy kind of hair, very dry. Ugh, it just annoys me, right? Even in the braids, this hair does not behave well because it's so lightweight. It's like flies everywhere. There's always this constant split in the middle of the bangs that no matter how many freaking times I give this doll a treatment for her hair, it's always like this, and it just irks me so bad. I just want to punch this hair off of her head. It is so annoying, but because I love her face up, I just leave her alone. Kind of a waste because even though I love this doll, she doesn't really get to see the light of day much unless I'm making a video and she's in it. I would say she's probably one of my favorite repaints of all time that I've done. Rainy Day up in her. Rainy is also a sew and style doll, believe it or not, and she is the day to night Trishelle. Man, my favorite thing about this doll is probably gonna be her hair color. Amazing. But these red tones with like the dark brown, it's like highlights. It's not too much. It's just like sprinkled in there here and there. I just love this hair color. I would dye my own hair this color. Rainy is also a repainted doll with the same sculpt as these other sew and style dolls. And most definitely she is on a made to move body. Now Rainy did make it onto the Broken Barbie show. Her character actually ended up being part of like the writer's room crew. So she basically like works with someone and Raymond. She's kind of one-dimensional, so she's like one of these people that's very optimistic, and like her catchphrase is "I love." So let's just say like another character is telling her like, oh my gosh, my house just burnt down and I lost everything. I can't believe this. This is insane. Then Rainy, instead of saying like, that's messed up, oh my goodness, I feel so bad, she would say something crazy like, I love fire. Fire is so beautiful. And the other person's like, what? Are you crazy? I just told you my house burnt down. I love that because your house burnt down, now you have an opportunity to try something new like living in a tent. You wouldn't have to pay for an electricity bill or a water bill. You wouldn't need to waste all your money on expensive things like furniture. I love tents. In fact, I think I have an extra one. Do you want it? That's how Rainy would respond. So she's predictable because you know she's gonna say she loves something about whatever you said. But then when she says the thing that she loves, you're like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. Like, whoa, what? She's like a comic relief character. Toxic positivity, if it could be a person, like that's what she is. I don't know, she's like living in a fantasy in her own head. So I just thought that it would be funny to have a character like this. So this is pretty much my little lineup of all of the oldest dolls that are genuinely still in my collection. I cannot believe it. Honestly, we are missing one because like I said, Raymond had a twin. But I didn't include him here because he's missing a foot and he's like such a hassle to try to like pose and stuff. You know, he's tired. He just wants to take a nap. But his whole face is repainted, and that doll I did feature in a previous video.
I be sleep with my blanket, okay, because it is my favorite, so soft, so warm, so quiet, all up on me while I'm naked. My blanket, my best friend. See when it's spread on the bed. See the spread, nigga bet not try to take it. I'ma get wild and crazy.
Benny Schmoove. I used him to be like a rapper. I decided to name him after my favorite uncle, Uncle Ben. So that's his little story, and I did totally repaint his face so that he wouldn't look like Raymond. And I also gave him new hair. Most of these dolls that are the oldest in my collection are very customized dolls. I think that really shows just my own psyche when it comes to collecting. Even when I only had these dolls in my collection at the time, I was very focused on trying to make them unique, different, stand out. I wasn't really part of the doll community at the time, but I was just thinking like, everybody who bought this doll has this doll. She's a manufactured doll with the factory paint, and I don't want her to look like the usual Barbie dolls, you know? So that's basically where the name Broken Barbie came from, the original name of this channel, before I switched it to Broken Dolly. I guess I looked at it like I'm kind of like breaking the stereotype of what a Barbie is supposed to be. Even the fact that I was very heavy on body switching and like swapping them out. A lot of people in the community back then was critiquing me and saying that it wasn't right for me to be swapping their heads out. A lot of people were telling me that that was not the right way to enjoy my dolls. They were trying to shame me basically for doing that. But in my book, it didn't make sense for me to keep the doll on the stiff body if I'm trying to pose them and create stories with them and do photo shoots and film them, because they can't move. So if I can find a match, why would I not swap it? Like, just logically, it made no sense that people were telling me that there are restrictions on how I can enjoy my dolls that I paid money for because, oh, it's not in its original condition anymore. And I'm like, so? Once I realized I could customize the doll, I could alter the doll's appearance and do different things with it, that's all I needed to know. And every vision that I had for how I wanted my characters to be, I was trying to manifest that by actually altering them myself. So this is how they ended up like this. And as far as like Rainy is concerned, you know, she's the one that you guys see the most out of this group here, other than my Soan and V characters. I wanted to incorporate more of Somi into the show as well because she's actually related to Soan, and I wanted like their storyline to kind of play out. Who knows? That could change in the future, just depending on where my channel goes. So we'll see. Maybe I'll bring these characters back. But as far as displaying them, the only one of these Soan style dolls that I actually keep out on display sometimes is Rainy. That really has more to do with the fact that because I handle Rainy more often, I don't have this fear that her face paint is too fragile to be left on display. I'm just used to seeing her out more, so really out of habit, that's why. That's a little bit of Broken Dolly lore for you guys. Okay, so you made it this far into the video and have to endure looking at my face again. Sorry. Oh man, I can't help it, y'all. Gosh, one day of eating too much turkey and stuffing can make me like this. This is insane. Oh my goodness gracious. How many days is it gonna take for me to get out of this? I don't know. Pray for me, okay? It's not even so much about being fat, you guys. It's because I'm diabetic and I'm not supposed to be eating like that. It's very bad for my body. So I have to watch what I eat because I could really get sick. But thankfully I haven't gotten sick, so I'm okay. But it's like showing on my body, you know what I mean? Like I can tell. What was I saying? Do you guys have any of these dolls that I showed you guys today? And which ones, if you do have them? When I look back at my channel, it's kind of like crazy to see the beginnings of my doll tubing journey. Like started with these dolls, and at the time, they were the only dolls that I had in my collection with no intention whatsoever to actually start actively collecting. Like I didn't buy these dolls because I was trying to collect. You know, I didn't think about it like that. So I don't know, maybe some of you guys watching this right now are in the beginning stages of your collecting journey and you're not even realizing that you are a future collector, or like you're officially already a collector, but you just don't even know it because you only have a handful of dolls and you didn't buy them with the intention of becoming a doll collector. That's how it starts. That's how it starts. Interesting in hindsight to think about it that way. I hope you guys had fun looking at these dolls with me today and going down memory lane with me. This was fun for me. Leave it below if you have a question or a request that you want me to answer you in video form. Like the few requests that I've been making my videos based on in these recent uploads, you see I do read my comment section, you guys. Sometimes I don't have the opportunity to answer y'all right away in the comments, but I'll like make a mental note of, okay, I want to answer that question, or I want to address this thing that this person said. So eventually I'll get around to making a video about it if I can figure out a way to piece it together. So make sure you're paying attention to every upload that goes up, because it could be your question or comment that I am basing my video on. Your question might be answered in that video. Make sure you're liking the videos as well, because that helps YouTube to push the videos out to other people like yourself who may not be familiar with this content, that have the same questions you guys have that they want to see answered in a video. Of course, you're always welcome to share whatever you find on this channel that you think will be entertaining to other people or helpful to other people on your forums or chats or whatever. Help your fellow doll collectors out by sharing the videos. Thank you so much for watching. I gotta go because I haven't eaten anything all day and it's like dinner time and I'm like fake fasting because I'm like, girl, you do not need to eat no more today, but my diabetes is like, yes you do. So I gotta get it together. I gotta go eat. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. My name is Gypsy and you are not, but that's okay because you can still go have a dolly day.